Welcome to On Second Thought. I'm John Price, and I'm here with our pastor, Jay Hackett, where every week we take a deeper dive into life at Peachtree Corners Baptist Church. Whether we're talking about the latest sermon, upcoming events, or just whatever's on Jay's mind, this is your insider look at our church, our staff, and what makes PCBC your church on the corner. So join our conversation as we help you find community, purpose, and growth. Let's get into it. Welcome to On Second Thought, and this episode is After Easter Hangover. It is Monday after a great day, but pretty exhausted after all the preparation, which has been for some time, right?
Yeah.
Staff meetings.
Months of things that kind of go into what happens on Easter Sunday, and then all of a sudden you just crash after that is over. But, so a little exhausted. Had a full throttle. This is my second coffee, and it's only 9:15.
That's right.
So, after this is over, I'm going home and going to bed. So
yeah, Monday. This is Monday. We normally have meetings all day, so that's exhausting in itself.
That's fun.
But no, yesterday
it's
was
great to be together though as a staff. And
yes,
just kind of chat.
We get to celebrate.
Yes,
all that was yesterday and all that happened.
Yeah, the place was packed, man.
Yes,
I mean we had a lot of familiar faces, a couple of never seen before faces that were in the room. Got to meet a lot of people yesterday, which I thought was great, and just from start to finish, man, everything was powerful.
Yeah.
It was fun to actually have people like in the front. I don't normally get that on a Sunday. And so
and the front was even more the front because we had to move
was very much
more
front.
chairs in there. And
so I think we had about 890 chairs in the room, and we added a few. We had overflow. So we ended up with 30 or 40 people that were
in the youth
down
area.
In the student area. Had over 100 in Collide and over 100 in preschool. So yeah.
Susan said that I think there were about 20 in each of their classes in pre-K, and they took time during the service for each class to go ride in the trains again.
Ride the train.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the train finally packed up close to 1.
Wow.
Close to 1 o'clock. So people were still standing in line and riding the train. I had one dad said, "This is our 4th ride." And I said, "Hey, get your money's worth, I said, it'd be fantastic."
Well, I was working with the guys who were in the across the street parking lot. We set up a tent, and they were, we were trying to figure out, okay, where should we put this? And one of them was like, "Yeah, Susan told us that they really don't want a lot of adults riding on the train." I was like, "Better you than me."
Good luck.
I was like, "Yeah, I want to see how that goes." Some of these adults will want to, but they didn't have like toddlers in the train by themselves.
No, correct.
They had. We had a great crowd. We had a lot of kids. A lot of work went into it. A lot of volunteers.
Yes.
To man the different areas. We had a bunch at the welcome desk. We had those passing out the donuts.
Donuts was a huge hit as
always.
Did you
several.
get one?
I did not. No. I didn't want to be fuzzy.
Yeah.
When I had to get on stage at the end of the service, so
April
had already made waffles that morning
to a service. So I don't eat before I preach, but I was looking for a donut once I came out of the worship center, and luckily Logan had stashed 3 of them, and so I stole one of his, and so I did get a Krispy Kreme. This is my one time a year to eat a Krispy Kreme donut, and so I thought that was fantastic, and but we went through them like crazy. So, it was great to see just the excitement of everybody in the lobby and eating donuts, and, they couldn't shake hands after they had all that glaze on their hands. Right. They had to fist bump you. But I thought it was a great
photo areas.
Photo areas were great. Loved getting on social media, yesterday in the evening and just seeing all of the different pictures that people post. And, it's free publicity across the board, but it was neat to kind of watch the things that were happening, and it's the one picture my family takes together every year is the one that happens at Easter, and so
and do you want to talk about the family not necessarily the picture, but just the attire. You mentioned last episode, that they had the matching dresses.
They had the matching dresses, yes. And
Griffith did not look happy.
I think she loved it. To be honest with you, I think she just played the part of the 18-year-old who's miserable, looking like her 12-year-old sister and her mother.
And her mom, yeah.
But still, when she got home yesterday, she was like, it wasn't that bad. And I was like, no, I said, you did well playing that up. But they looked great together.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a wonderful thing for the three of them. I did not think I would look good in that dress. So I decided to go khakis and a more of a grayish shirt, choice, if you will. But I thought, man, yesterday was powerful. As far as the worship set, we added a bunch of new songs that we'd never heard.
Yeah.
Halfway through the set, Molly Grace leaned over to me and she was like, I don't know any of these songs. And I was like, yeah, but it's the theme, right? Yeah. It's coming out of the grave. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I was like, but it was great. Jacob, the Sarahs, the choir, the band, 2 keyboards. I mean, you mentioned that earlier. Yeah. You're like, man, we're pulling out all the stops,
right.
But I thought everything was powerful. Congrats to Todd and his team for making sure that everything worked yesterday. And then just the worship team did a fabulous job. And, made it very easy to step up and to lay down John chapter 11. And a lot of verses, man. I started thinking to myself, I was like, 46 verses that I'm going to read today. So
that's a perfect passage for a first-time guest. And now we'll read the whole Bible.
Yeah, Homer and Odyssey. Yeah, no, but I thought that the story itself was a beautiful picture of resurrection and what Jesus offers when he says, I am the resurrection and the life. And, the 2 things I really wanted to hit was the fact that God still wants to call us out of the grave. I knew there would be people there yesterday who either had never heard the gospel or have heard it over so many times that it wasn't, something that necessarily grips them. Or some were just seeking and trying to figure out what's this whole Christianity thing all about. And just being able to kind of walk through that passage and show, listen, Christ wants us to step out of the grave. He wants to give us resurrection now. He wants to give us life now. And then the second thing that I really wanted to hit was just that idea of bondage. I think sometimes we step out of the grave, but we stay bound to our sin. We stay bound to our past, or we don't ever quite.
Or to addictions.
Or to
default patterns.
These little patterns, these things that we fall and prey to, and we think, I'll never. This is me. This is who I'll always be.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of times, angry people that become Christians just become angry Christians, right? And so it's not necessarily always sin. Sometimes a category around that would be addiction or abuse or things they need healing from.
Correct.
That and I think. A couple of years ago when we were just even talking about the discipleship model and what that should look like, this idea of freedom a lot of times isn't incorporated into this idea. Is that we think, okay, well, I became a Christian, blank slate, no problems, no issues. And the fact of the matter is, salvation is a decision to follow Christ, to be a part of that kingdom. We are saved by his sacrifice, by his blood and resurrection. But there's still stuff we have to deal with, or we just repeat those patterns. Absolutely. And so that really resonated with me as well, that you brought out that freedom. I thought that was huge. And I really thought too, your first point was particularly to maybe our first time guests or maybe folks who struggle with this, is the idea of delay. That I think a lot of times people maybe early in their faith, if they grow up in church, they go through a difficult period and God doesn't seem to be there or rescue them out of it. And so that natural thought is, well, either he doesn't exist or he doesn't care, Correct. And so I thought that was a beautiful way to really bring in the people where they were.
Yeah.
Because we've all dealt with that.
Absolutely.
First thing you said, people don't like to wait.
No.
And I really identified with you'd rather chance it in traffic than have to wait for the light.
Oh, my goodness. Delay, it's still something you struggle with at any walk.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter really where you are, because there's still that humanistic side of things where we want it instantaneous. And
right.
God, we want you to do it now. Because my timeline has to happen here, or this won't happen, or this won't happen, or this won't happen, and that whole idea of God's going, well, let me just remind you, you're not in control. I see a bigger picture than what you see. And we're like, oh, okay, or even the disciples in that whole passage. I love the interaction that he has with them.
Yeah.
Hey, we need to go back. They're like, yeah, let's not, and he's like, no, we need to go back. They're going to stone you. And he's like, yeah, but this is where God wants us to be. And so we need to be here in this moment. And because Lazarus is asleep, dude, he'll wake up, don't make me go.
Well, and it's funny you brought this out that a lot of times people miss sarcasm in Scripture, and what Thomas was like, well, let's all go to
die with him.
Yeah. So that was
here we go,
And I think a lot of times people might miss the fact that you brought out that this is somebody that Jesus loved, and when he heard about it, you would think his immediate response would be to let's go. But it's like, man, if that's how Jesus treats his friends, who is this guy? Yeah. But and so there's things that we just don't see. That idea of delay just shows how we can't even imagine sometimes how God wants to show up in a certain situation where all we can see is, well, no, the best scenario is that he takes care of this problem now.
I'm not even sure who said it, but, Jesus is never early. He's never late. He's always on time. Mm. And so, that concept of going, okay, well, you're not going to show up before you're supposed to.
Right.
And you're not going to be late,
Yeah.
And that's even when he's 4 days late, there's the old song, the old, Southern gospel hit, when he's 4 days late, he's still on time. Mm. And so, that God sees a bigger picture. So it's that feeling of trust and going, okay, what do I know about you?
Yeah.
And I do know that you love me. I look at the cross. I see that. You're not doing what I'm needing you to do in this moment, but obviously there's a reason. And so, this is not going to end in death. This is going to end in the glory of my Father. And so just kind of wrestling with that, I think, in times of just kind of going, all right, Lord, I've asked for this. It didn't happen. To quote the great theologian Garth Brooks, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers. Right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, but God, why did you do this? And because that's not the best for you right now.
Yeah.
And so I just need you to trust me. And so I think as we mature, as we grow in our discipleship, we'll still ask, but it's a deeper understanding of going, okay, it's not your timing. It's not what you want to do right now. I don't understand it, but I'll trust it. And my faith, ultimately
submitting to his sovereignty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You have the best in mind for me. And whatever that's going to be, okay.
Yeah. To quote another anonymous person, I can't remember who said it, that if I had God's power, things would be different around here. But if I had his wisdom, it would look the same. That idea of, we all think, boy, if I were God, I'd do things differently. Just thinking about his power and ability, but not thinking that God is sovereign. He knows the best, what is best for us, what is best for his creation and his plan. And so submitting to that and saying, God, I don't understand it, but that's why you're God and I'm not.
It's a good thing that we're not.
Yeah.
But and then moving from delay to death, just seeing how much Jesus was stirred with the concept of death and understanding that it goes back to the fall. And he's like, death was never part of the plan. Right.
Right.
My plan was to be in your presence forever, enjoying one another. And yet you chose to go elsewhere. And because you went elsewhere, this is now the consequence. And so Jesus standing there in this moment, looking at the grave of Lazarus, seeing Mary and Martha, begins to weep, yes, because he has compassion and concern for this family. He knows the pain that they go through. It's pain that all of us go through, right? I mean, when we lose a loved one or we're watching someone walk through the portal towards death, it's heartbreaking, and we're crying because we're going to miss this person. We're going to miss the interaction that we've had with them. But ultimately, every time we see this, it should stir us to the point to look past that and go, this is because we fell. This is so, this was never meant. God never designed that, but thank God we have one who overcame the grave. And because he overcame the grave, we too can experience it. And that's kind of why we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Death has no sting for a believer any longer. Jesus said, even though you die, you're going to live.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that you will forever be with me in eternity. And so to be absent from the body, present with the Lord, don't let it. But it's still one of those things that we struggle with, and then we go, I hate death.
Well, to see Jesus's humanity, to see the fact that he's not callous towards our pain and suffering, that he actually loves us and hurts when we hurt.
100%.
And that is, that's one of the counseling tools that April uses in helping people heal past trauma is kind of imagining those times of trauma and then picturing where's Jesus in this. And most of the time, that's not anything that's ever occurred because we automatically think, well, he's just not around. But he is with us. Mm-hmm. And just even imagining where Jesus was in that scenario can really help to bring healing and bring us back to intimacy with Christ and the Father. So that is huge.
That is big time there. And then just the, Lazarus come out. And I didn't bring it up yesterday, but the great theological
That's
debate.
what this podcast is for.
That's what we
on
do.
Second thought.
Yes, the old adage that,
I forgot
that people
to say.
talk about is that if it's not just said Lazarus, right? If he had just said, come out, then and it's good to think about and go, hey, he has that power. He speaks life into existence. And if he'd have just said, come out, there is a very good chance that any dead person that would have been in the vicinity would have walked forth and, would have come out of the grave. But you start thinking about that, and that's the kind of power that Jesus has. And that's why we sang that Chris Tomlin song, Resurrection Power, to wrap up the service. Yeah, it was another new song, but it was like, man, this song is so good when we understand it. Yeah. That I have his resurrected power living on the inside of me. And so does that mean I can call things out from the dead? No. What that means is I have been brought out of being dead, and now I've been made alive. And so his strength and power now lives in me. That means I can be delivered, right, from any of these things that I feel like, man, I'm stuck in this. I'll never get past it. And it's like, no. Who's on the inside of you? He walked out of the grave. Therefore, you can come out of this grave and you can experience that same resurrection power, which to me is it's phenomenal. And I think a lot of Christians don't live there. We may have moments, right? Like yesterday, you get 900 people in a room together and you're singing and, you have what we refer to as these experiences, right. Such a great experience. And God's going, I didn't call you to experience these mountaintops, periodically throughout your life and go, man, I was so close to Jesus that moment. He goes, I've called you to walk with me and recognize that, hey, I'm here. And so I want you to experience my power today. And whether that is in overcoming something that we struggle with, or whether that's, sharing, something about, hey, let me just tell you what God's been doing in my life. Sometimes we go, I couldn't tell anybody about Jesus. I couldn't talk about that kind of relationship. And it's like, no. Yes, you can. Because he's done this for you, that's the story, right? It's your experiences, man, I have met the risen Lord. And because I have met him, man, my life has been transformed, and I want you to experience what I've experienced. And, just the stories I'm hearing from people that are having those conversations. And, the first conversation, they call me and they're like, hey, I don't even know what I said, but God used it, and it's like, God says he's going to give you the words in the moment, so you just have to have a willingness to go, hey, let me just tell you about how good God is.
Yeah.
And I think the more aware we are of his presence and going, okay, Lord, you're at work here, you're going to do something here, just use me, use me for your glory. Then we're aware of it, we're open to it. And then when God gives us the opportunity, we share, because that's what we've been called to be faithful to, is just sharing. God says, look, I do the converting, I do the transformation, I do the change. So, don't worry about getting cleaned up, to come to church. Don't worry about getting everything right before you can connect to other believers. It's like, no, man, let me come now. Let me get connected, and then let God do the cleaning. And, I think sometimes one of the things yesterday I was thinking about was he stinks, right? Talking about Lazarus been dead. Right. Yeah. He's been dead for 4 days. God, he stinks.
Right.
And so we probably don't need to open this. And I was thinking, how many people do we have in our life that are around us that we think, he stinks, she stinks.
Right.
There's too much death there. There's too much past there. There's too much whatever for them to ever come to Jesus, And so we make the presupposition that they can't. And I'm just like going, Jesus is going, no, that's the one I want. I love taking the one who's been dead for 4 days or for 40 years or for whatever it is, and showing you the power that I have to bring them to life. Right. And so, just that thought of, let's not judge other people unless you're too far gone. You're too much this for them to come to know Christ. Oh, you're in a homosexual lifestyle, or, oh, you're doing, drugs or drinking, or you're so anti-Christ that you would never even consider thinking da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, no, you're perfect to get to know my Savior. And let me tell you about him, not to change you, not to transform you, not to make you think like I think, but just to introduce you to him so that you begin to walk with him. And then you turn around and go, wow, man, look at that. Right.
Yeah.
Because God doesn't take our broken vase and glue it back together. He turns it into something that's brand new. And I think we try to fix people. Hey, let me glue this back. Let me, and then you finish it. Now, you're different because you're on the Craftsman team. You have talent. My wife tells me I don't ever want you doing anything around our home because you're not very good at it. And I think sometimes that's how we approach life. We're not good at fixing other people. That's not our job.
Right.
And so Jesus is the only one who he doesn't fix, he makes brand new. And so that's the beautiful story of deliverance and Lazarus coming out of the dead. And, that's our story. No matter where we've been, no matter what we've done, we all have a past. We all have death that we have to get off of us, and we allow him to work through us and live through us, man.
Yeah. Well, it was a great service, a great message, a great day. So what just on a personal level, do you guys have special plans afterwards or before? I know people have different Easter traditions.
There are lots of Easter traditions. I'm so thankful that both our in-laws and my parents understand that Easter is the Super Bowl. And so they put no expectations on our family.
Right.
So we went to La Paria, and then I went home and slept for 2 hours.
That's awesome.
Yesterday, put on some golf so I could just have something nice and calm in the background.
That would put me to sleep. Sure.
And then fell asleep and just kind of relaxed. How about you? Did you guys do anything special?
We went out to eat with the Jinx and at Marlowe's and had a great time. Boone was home. Nice. And so we got to, the five of us had just a great meal together. I felt really old just kind of reflecting back because this is the first Easter, I think, that we didn't do any kind of candy. So I was like, no chocolate on Easter, no, so no Cadbury eggs. Usually there's at least one Cadbury egg for me.
Yes.
That's my hands down. Nothing compares once a year. So that might be, instead of staff meeting or exec meeting, we might need to go to CVS
and get all their
discount
stuff.
Right. So if there's any Cadbury eggs left. But no, that it was very low key for us afterwards, because the day is such a big focus on getting there early, making sure everything's set up, just welcoming people and just conversations, that it is really it's a wind down afterwards. So great lunch. Boone left back for Mercer, and April and I took long naps.
Nice.
And took it easy the rest of the day. I think we went on we left her car here, so we walked from home to here, had a good several mile walk to get her car out of that parking lot. But yeah, it was really nice. It was beautiful weather for it.
It was gorgeous weather for it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I guess at 18 and 12, the bunny changes what they bring. So there was not a lot of candy this year, but apparently the bunny went to Kate Spade, and it was
now
a little more expensive.
Clothing, is it accessories?
Purses,
okay,
accessories.
Gotcha.
So I noticed that the Easter Bunny brought my wife and both of my daughters new purses.
More generous to them than you.
Was very generous to them, but all well deserving, and so very excited that they were able to do that. And so now we prepare for the week after Easter letdown. And so we go from 1,100 people on campus.
It's Sunday, but Monday's coming.
But Mondays, let's go reverse on that.
It's time to.
Yeah. So this coming Sunday is usually a very low Sunday. Because everybody showed up on the Sunday, Jesus takes attendance.
Right.
So they got their checkboard on that one, so they don't have to come back the next week. But this next week we will be back and hopefully have our new chairs in this week.
Possibly, Todd just told us this morning, possibly today.
Which
would be very cool. That might be what we do instead of a meeting.
It might be what we end up doing this afternoon, is slinging 1,000 new chairs around and having some fun with that. So, but that'll be good. So next week we'll have chairs, and then prayerfully, fingers crossed, we'll see.
Come and break in your own chair.
Yes.
Get it to fit just right.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
The more you're here, the more it will be form fitting. So.
Yeah. I was thinking about, a giving status. Like if you give X amount, we could put a plaque or something on your chair.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong with this? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'd start giving at 100,000 and going up depending on, kind of what you want.
Wow.
But, no, it'll be fun. It'll be another great weekend. And then May, man, it's hard to believe. The kids have, from today, 22 days of school remaining. And so getting ready for our summer, which is crazy.
That's not you wouldn't know that figure. Is that, who told you that one? Was that Griffin?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Griffin actually has a little less. Molly Grace has 22.
Okay.
Griffin gets out 3 days earlier, so she only has 19 days left.
Nice.
And so then, I don't have that figure off the top of my head.
Right,
That's just my kids.
That's a kid figure.
I don't want this anymore. Yeah.
19 more days left till summer.
School, and then she graduates, man.
Yeah. So yesterday we in the festivities of the foyer, we had the VBS table, which was very cool. They did a great job decorating, but well over 500 kids already registered, and the big need is for adults. So if you are free and available that week, there is needs for
whether it's dropping off snacks, working at the snack table.
Not all just teaching.
You don't have to be in the classroom necessarily with the kids. But there's some of you that enjoy that.
Now you're talking my language.
But there's many opportunities of how you can be connected, and we would love for you to be a part of VBS this year. That'll be phenomenal. And then Logan was the other one that had everything set up, getting ready for their beach retreat, which is it's a summer.
No. It's summer camp, and it's a different place, though. It's not at the beach this year.
To the beach.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
they're going to the middle.
I know you have feelings. I'm kind of excited just because it's a turnkey camp, which means they take care of their food. And there's a lot of activities. I've been on staff at beach camps, and so much of it is around the weather. Boy, we've had weeks where it was red tide, and man, when your selling point is beach, there's a lot riding on that.
There is a lot riding on that. Let's be honest. The only reason you're excited about this is because you don't have to do the food this year.
I'm very excited about that. Yeah,
you could care less where they went when you just were told you do not have to do food this year. You were like, "That's the best decision."
I loved it. I loved doing it. I had a great team. It was nonstop.
Yeah,
nonstop. I mean, nonstop. so it was good. The kids loved it. They loved the food. But man,
you let me work in the kitchen one day with you, but it was just for breakfast,
again.
And you said, "That's it. Get out."
You have way too much energy that early in the morning, and I was trying to focus on 8 things, and so yeah.
Are you trying to say I'm distracting sometimes, John?
I'm saying I'm easily distractible. How about that?
That's a good way to put it.
Let's flip the script. So no, it was good. And this is going to be a great summer. We got a lot going on this summer. We have the Kenya trip, VBS. We have what's the kids camp? Is that Centric Kid?
SOU, the Centric Kid. Yeah, man, there's all kinds of stuff happening this summer.
Yeah.
Make sure that you are on the app so that you can see all of the events, the things that are coming, down the pike.
Either one is acceptable.
One of those, right?
I've actually looked into it.
All right, well, good.
Pipe
because
or pike is acceptable.
If I'm thinking pike, someone says pipe, and if I'm thinking pipe, they say
now
pike.
you know.
And now you know. You can go either way.
I've heard it both ways.
I've heard it both ways. Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else?
No.
Okay.
We need to end this quick.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode, and it is good to be a part of PCBC. We're glad that you are, and we would just invite you that if you enjoyed this episode or the podcast in general, if you would like, share, make comments. We'd love to hear what was your favorite part of Easter Sunday if you enjoyed it. So comment below.
If you did not enjoy it,
keep that to yourself.
Right. Yeah.
But that all that stuff does help us as far as being more discoverable for people in this area.
That's right.
So, all right. Thank you. Have a great day. God bless. Well, that's it for this episode of On Second Thought. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to like, subscribe, and share this with a friend. If you have a question or thought, drop it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to find out more about your church on the corner, check us out at pcbchurch.org. We'll be back next week with more. So until then, have a great week and God bless.